We're talking to Brandon Mitchell. He was juror number 52 in the Derek Chauvin murder trial. Brandon, before we wrap, many people don't like jury duty and probably wouldn't respond to the letter that you get in the mail. So what message would you leave to those about saying yes to jury duty?
I mean, it's important. If we want to see some change, we want to see some things going differently, we got to get out there and get into these avenues and get in these rooms to try to spark some change. And that's
Absolutely.
jury duty is one of the things. Jury duty, voting, all of those things are things we got to do.
And how can people follow you on social media or tune into your podcast?
Yeah, so the Wholesome Pod.
All right, so there you heard it from Brandon Mitchell, one of the jurors in the Chauvin case. It is important to get on juries, not to enact, of course, justice, but to enact, of course, social change. Hello, everybody. My name is James with Heavyweight Politics. Happy to see y'all all again. Today, we're going to be going over a little bit of the Chauvin case, because right now we've had just some groundbreaking news that, again, Brandon Mitchell, one of the jurors, juror 52, actually said on air that the reason why you should try to get on juries is to enact a form of social change. And that's not it. Apparently, he also might have lied. Spoiler, it's not a might have, he did lie, on to the defense to actually get on the jury. So not only is he out here now saying you need to get on juries to enact social change, he actually lied to get on the Chauvin jury. So we got a story over here from the Washington Times. Chauvin juror who attended pretrial rally might jeopardize the guilty verdict. One of the glorious things actually about our legal system, it truly is a glorious thing, is that if one thing goes wrong, all it takes is one thing to go wrong, and you might have an entire mistrial on your hand, right? We are very, very, very careful when it comes to our legal system. We make sure that, basically all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and if not, more than likely the person walks free a lot of times, or at the very least has a new trial, right? Which, of course, doesn't really look good on the prosecution. This trial had so many issues from the start of it, right? I'm talking about, jurors having to drive through the riots to get to the courthouse. The idea they were not sequestered. The idea that there was someone who actually took a picture of the jurors early on in the trial. You had someone who went and spoke up for the defense, who had a pig's head staked out by his old house covered in blood. I mean, just some crazy stuff happening, really old, like mafia style stuff happening during this trial. You had the prosecution admitting evidence that the judge told him not to admit, or not really even evidence, just statements that the judge told him not to admit. There is almost no doubt in my mind that there will at the very least be an appeal, but here's the thing. Now with a juror coming out and saying that he wanted to be on juries to enact social change, again, not justice, not uphold the law, but create social change, I do not even know how you don't just have a straight up mistrial at this point. But let's look a little bit about what he did, because it gets even worse than just he attended, of course, a rally as well as said he wants to enact social change. So a juror in the Derek Chauvin trial might have jeopardized the guilty verdict by attending a rally last year wearing a "Get Your Knee Off Our Neck" / Black Lives Matter t-shirt, raising questions about whether he told the truth during the jury section. He didn't. Brandon Mitchell, known as Juror 52, told Minneapolis news outlet Monday that he attended the August 28th march in Washington, D.C., featuring speeches by George Floyd's siblings, while a photo circulated online showing him with two cousins wearing a t-shirt as well as Black Lives Matter hat. What may come back to haunt the prosecution is that Mr. Mitchell, 31, answered no when he was asked in the jury selection if he attended any protests for George Floyd. I think they asked if I attended any protests for George Floyd or anything for police brutality. My answer was no, because I hadn't, Mr. Mitchell told WCCO TV in Minneapolis. This particular march was more so for voting, voter registration, getting people out to vote for the presidential election, and was upcoming months afterwards. This was the only thing I attended. The march was held to commemorate the anniversary of Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech, but the National Action Network billed it as the Commitment March, Get Your Knee Off Our Neck, and several members of George Floyd's family spoke. New photos from the event demonstrate that wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, as well as carrying a Black Lives Matter flag, as well as signs of messages including "I can't breathe," which Floyd repeatedly told police before he died. So, you have a juror right now who honestly went to what he claimed it was a voter registration rally, right? However, we've been told this entire time Black Lives Matter is nothing about, it's not Marxist, it's not communist, that's what they keep saying. They say it's only about police brutality. They keep saying the whole point of Black Lives Matter is to say that black people are being victimized by police. He's wearing Black Lives Matter gear. He's wearing "Get Your Knee Off My Neck." He listened to the family members of Floyd speak. And yet, he was allowed to be on the jury. Now, here's the funny thing. Everyone's holding up on him. I want to know, what about the other jurors too? How many of them were also corrupted by all this, right? How many of them also might have lied to get on the jury? We don't know. And the issue right now is a lot of people on Twitter keep saying, well, how are you going to find someone who isn't biased already? And that's an honest question, right? Everyone has heard about this case, the problem with mass media. The only way you're not going to have people who heard about this case is if you hold the trial in somewhere like middle of nowhere, Alaska or something like that, or people have to take planes to get to the courthouse because there's no other way to travel, right? You have to really, really stretch to try to find anyone who hasn't heard about this case at this point. But the important thing is at least try to have jurors who aren't lying to get on the jury. He has admitted at this point that he was on the jury to enact social change. Again, not to hold up justice, but to enact social change. On the left, those two words are synonymous, right? And in reality, they are not. All right, they are not. These are people, again, Black Lives Matter is a communist organization, which means at the very end of the day, they believe the ends justify the means. That is at the heart of all authoritarian styles of governance, right? The ends will justify the means. It's okay if we oppress people here as long as it gets to the end result. Black Lives Matter believes the same exact thing. They believe the ends justify the means. They believe the people they victimized during the riots, that's okay because in the end, it will be for a greater cause. You cannot have someone who believes that kind of notion whatsoever be a jury or juror for any trial for any reason. The ends can never justify the means when it comes to the legal system. And we have so many ways of making sure our legal system does not get corrupted by this mentality. By, of course, there's the idea of, the fruit of the poisonous tree, I think is what it's called, right? Where you could have evidence that shows without a doubt this person committed a crime. But if you obtain that evidence in an illegal fashion, it cannot be used in court. And if you try to use it in court, it can get the whole case thrown out, right? We are very, very careful about what we allow. Now, that does raise some questions going to the future right now with the surveillance state and all that stuff saying, hey, well, my Fourth Amendment rights might have been violated. But that's a topic for another day. For this, though, we are very, very careful typically about what happens in jury selection. We're very particular when it comes to how we handle trials in general. And right now we have multiple grounds for a mistrial, right? People are saying, well, he'll get the appeal. I don't know how you just don't get a straight mistrial at this point. Again, you have people, they didn't sequester the jury. You have people on the defense being intimidated. You have congresswomen flying in all the way from California just say, hey, get more confrontational over this to crowds of rioters. You have the president speaking and already saying, well, we want there to be a guilty verdict. How is this not jury intimidation? I don't know. I feel like when the president says, hey, I want this verdict, and you're just some random dude in the middle of nowhere, what are you supposed to do at that point, right? The whole world's basically against you is what it feels like. There is no way this does not get, at the very least, an appeal. It doesn't seem even possible. And again, that's just taking out some of the other things as well, because there was other issues that the prosecution had during the trial where they were trying to admit evidence they were not allowed to admit, as well as make arguments that really are not arguments that a prosecution is supposed to be leveling in the first place. So the defense raised those issues up during the trial, but the judge, he kept giving warnings, but that was kind of about it. So it's going to be curious to see what happens from here. But the fact that one of the jurors has now come out and said, first off, not only did the juror lie to get on the jury, but he has now come out and said that his whole point that why he wants to get on juries is to enact a form of social change and not to enact, of course, justice or the rule of law. I I don't see how it's not already grounds for mistrial. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where all this ends up going. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I will be back on tomorrow, see what, if anything else might pop up about it, because this ain't over. This ain't over. If you're in a city, go ahead and maybe get some more guns and just kind of lock down for a while, because if it goes back to trial, it's going to get bad. It's going to get bad, but I don't know how it doesn't at this point. So, if you liked the video, please subscribe, like, of course, on the other side, on BitChute, Minds, as well as on Twitch, and I will see you all again tomorrow.